I originally created this presentation for the Wisconsin Broadcasters Clinic last fall, and
Huh.
I did that because whether I'm coming to the chapter meeting here or other chapters or Wisconsin broadcasters in previous years, the preponderance of gray and or no hair at all in the audience was overwhelming. And it struck me that an awful lot of people needed to give some thought to the ramifications of retirement. And there are, and before I get started on this thing, I want to say that I'm awfully pleased about the direction of the chapter and what everybody's able to do, Josh, and you folks on the as officers of the SBE here, Chapter 25, have done in picking ball up, and I'm really pleased and glad to see the direction things are going, and I have a lot of hope that it's going to continue to advance and grow under new leadership. So, having said that, um, I wanted to explain why I gave a presentation on retirement, why I even gave thought to it. And it boils down to the fact that many, many years ago, when I was working for ITC in Bloomington Normal, Illinois, I was working for a fellow by the name of Jack Jenkins. Jack Jenkins owned ITC in those days. And he sold it about 6 months after I got there and for $4 million. And he went to the lawyer's office in Bloomington, drove over there, and signed all the documents to sell it to 3M. And they handed him a check for $4 million. And he handed it out, and he got in his car and he drove over to his bank. And he was about halfway over across Bloomington Normal, and he had a heart attack.
Oh,
And he had a quadruple bypass. He survived, but he did live the rest of his life in a wheelchair. And
hey.
he told me afterwards, he said, Chuck, he said, I got to tell you why I had a heart attack. I had a heart attack because I had never envisioned myself in any other way except what it said on my business card. And as I was driving away from that lawyer's office, having sold the company I founded, I realized I didn't have anything on my business card anymore. And it was so um, difficult to deal with that I had an anxiety attack and a heart attack. And I thought to myself, I suspect an awful lot of us broadcast engineers today in the SBE are either at the age, past the age, or nearing the age of retirement. And if we can, yeah, go ahead, Doug,
I just want to throw something in here.
fire away.
When I was not growing up, but I used to hear a lot about women before they started to work a lot in the workforce, that they were always somebody's daughter, somebody's
Mhm,
wife, or somebody's mother
mhm.
instead of being who they were.
Exactly.
You've probably heard that. But the problem with men is they are what they do.
Yeah,
A mechanic, they're a lawyer, they're a plumber, a carpenter.
yeah,
Instead of who they are, they're what they do. So
right.
I've given that speech to some people who retired. One was Eric Halverson at Channel 8 when he retired. You got to think about who you are. Don't get tied up in what you do.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And then that's really, I think, what caused Jack Jenkins to have a heart attack is he could no longer think of himself in those terms. So I resolved that I was going to research heavily before I retired, research heavily retirement, and listen to a lot of divergent opinions, and then try to share it to the best I can with fellows in the same situation that I'm in. So I put together this presentation. It's not very long. It's not really complicated, and you'll all laugh at it because you're already there. But It is what it is. So let's just plow forward here. This presentation is not a discussion about managing your retirement portfolio, suggestions regarding your Medicare supplement plan, or discussion of retirement budgets. There's plenty of people that in the months leading up to my retirement, I got a zillion emails or snail mails from that wanted to talk about those things. That's not what this is. This presentation is understanding what it means not to have a job to go to your point, Doug, understanding how you see yourself post-retirement. What will your business card say? Even if it's just rhetorical, even if it's just in your mind, what does your business card say? How to avoid psychological shock and learning to prepare for your new reality. Somebody want to contribute there something? Okay.
Well, no,
I
I just like to drink Coke.
There you go. Very, very good. Very good. Part of the Pepsi generation, are you, Doug?
that's like Star Wars. You don't mention that.
I know what you're saying. Just trying to get your goat here a little bit. So I read a book called Independence Day by Steve Lopez about retirement. It's really quite good. You can pick it up at the library. Um, there are in that book, it explains that there are six basic categories, or Steve's categories of retirees. There are continuers that fit existing skills to some modified use. There are easy gliders. There's no plan, take each day as it comes. There are adventurers that make big changes, try things out, try new things, some daring. Searchers who reflect on the meaning of their lives and contemplate what to do. Involves spectators, remain in the career field but in a different role. And then there's retreaters who take a break, perhaps permanently, from trying to figure out what to do each day. And let's explore these a little bit. Continuers, and a little bit from the perspective of all of our careers. They help out with AV at a church, teach at a community college, build and operate an LPFM, become an SBE mentor, get involved with amateur radio. I think there's a little bit of each of these in all of us, judging by the folks that are part of this meeting tonight. Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, I was already involved in ham radio since I was 13,
Me too, yeah.
and I don't have to do AV at my church because the pastor there I've known since he was 2.5, and he learned how to do it all from me.
Okay. All right. Easy gliders. They play golf or poker, babysit the grandchildren as needed. They're spontaneous and open to last minute opportunities. And having no set schedule can be dangerous because activity is important. So, and a little bit to your point before, Doug, retirement is when you stop living at work and start working at living. Okay. And there can be parts of each of these in each of us. The question is, what's predominant? Adventurers, what might they do? Start a home business, go back to college, move overseas, move into an RV and travel constantly. Doug, that's probably closer to what you are.
Yeah, and in 1970, I had a 1974 Volkswagen bus, just that
Mm-hmm.
color.
How about that? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Searchers. They try lots of things. They see what makes them happy. They're always willing to change course. Tend to be introspective. They understand themselves and see the freedom from a fixed career as the best part of retirement. And there's me in that too, because I think getting rid of an 8 to 5 has freed me up to enjoy a lot of different things, and there's part of me in that one. Involves spectators, like all of us here, attending SBE meetings and trade shows, even though they're retired, assisting other engineers occasionally, all of the fun, none of the pressure. And they volunteer at a local public radio station or LPFM on air. I think there's some of us there as well. Retreaters say, well, I worked an awfully long time. I'm just going to take a break to relax. Sometimes a short break becomes longer, and a permanent couch potato condition can occur, which can shorten your life. Retreaters, and it has been said broadcast engineers, retire to the graveyard. Don't be a retreater. Well, there's got to be a comment on that one, folks. We all know somebody like that. No? Okay. Here are some typical statistics which have been done I'm trying to read this in my own comments here at the bottom. This is the Labor Department came out with this, and it adds up to more than 24 hours because some of the categories are components of others. But this is a typical statistic about how retirees spend their days. Sleeping is 9.01 hours. Don't I wish?
I get that.
It's for you, buddy. I wish I did. I don't watch TV anywhere close to 4.5 hours a day. Unless,
Only if it's Star Trek.
there you go. Or in my case, the Final Four or something like that. All right. So, well, just after just a week at home, I've come up with a comprehensive list of how to do things more efficiently around here, honey. And that's the real reason why many men don't live long after retiring. The reason I put that in there is not just funny, but retirement can have effects on all of our significant others, wives, and other household members. So it's important to discuss your retirement with others in the household because everything's going to change, including relationships with your family and friends. It is a transition from your old life to your new life. This is going to get done real quick, folks, because nobody's saying anything. Nobody's disagreeing with me. I guess maybe that's good, huh? Here's 25 things to do when you retire. This is from U.S. News and World Report. I'll let you read these. I'm not going to read them all.
Well, I don't think you can get financially savvy after the fact. You either already were or you're lost.
Maybe, although there's changes that occur. You could be financially savvy enough to deal with your life until you get to retirement. But once you're on a fixed income, it's a whole different kind of savvy you need to be.
But usually you have too much life at the end of the money.
I understand.
Unless you're Fred Baumgartner.
Any of these ring a bell at all?
Well, for number 13, you can go on my webpage, garlinger.com, and read my family history back to the 16 and 1500s.
I have several in my family that have embraced ancestry.com because of exactly that, at exactly that point in their life.
Yeah, but the problem is I averaged out the ages of all my grandparents named Garlinger. I averaged it all out, and I should have died in February 2020.
Uh-huh.
So then I took every grandparent, male and female, on both sides of the family, averaged that out. And Steve, when am I going to die? You're muted. Still not hearing you. You're muted.
Still not working. Steve,
Yeah.
your mic's not selected or something. It's not saying you're muted. It's saying that your mic isn't selected.
Then I'll just throw it in there. My next death date's May 3rd, so I won't make the next meeting.
Doug, when you average all of your ancestors in, that's averaging in people whose idea of medical care was leeches, right?
Well, yeah, George Washington.
Yeah.
Just believe
Hello,
him.
Bill.
Hello there.
Well, I'll throw in my third death date. So then I just averaged only the grandparents that lived to be to 70. And so I have till September of 2029.
Very good to see you, buddy.
I go for the latter. Well, there's a problem with number 15. And the problem is that nobody wants the stuff that I've saved over the years.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, and not only that, but now that you've had the time to dedicate yourself to that, it may be that your significant other has a different set of things that you want to declutter.
Possibly.
Yeah.
We still have to finish decluttering her ex-husband's crap.
Mm. Yep. Understood.
I know, Chuck, in my wife's case, she said that when I'm gone, she's going to collect a bunch of those brown grocery shopping bags, and she'll say anything you can carry out in the bag in the garage, $1 a bag.
Wow.
And considering all the electronics stuck out there, it might be a bargain. So,
You guys ever hear the story about the lady who asked the husband, when I die, are you going to marry again? And he said, well, no, of course not. She said, you really should. You really should. You need somebody in your life. Well, okay, dear. Well, will you let her live in the house? Yeah, if we're going to be married, I guess that's what we should do. Well, will you let her play golf with you? And will she use my clubs? And he goes, no, she's left-handed. All right. Any other comments about this page before we blow on by? No. Some things to remember about retirement. As I said, this is a short presentation, folks. Your retirement is as unique as you are. And this is one of my favorites. Analyze what things you did during your career that you loved and what things you despised, and do what you love and do them on your schedule. And that's pretty much the rule I've been living by here. Do things that I enjoyed and none of the things I didn't, and do them on my schedule. It is a gradual transition, not a step function as many perceive it. In fact, your retirement will evolve over time as your health, family, and finances change. Management, making the most of what you have at every point in time. And from time to time, and this is another one of my own rules, when facing a fork in the road, imagine you're at the end of your life, laying on your deathbed, looking back at the things you didn't do and wish you had, as well as the things you did do that you wish you hadn't, and try to make your decision from that perspective. Any comments there? It's a little maudlin, I understand, but it's not the end, but a new beginning, and happy retirement. That's my presentation, folks. Let's talk about your retirement, see what you have taken away from this that makes sense or that have a different perspective on.
Well, this hasn't anything to do with me, but for those of you that have Hulu, you should watch a movie with Nicolas Cage called The Retirement Plan.
Right? Good one, is it?
It's Nicolas Cage. It's on Hulu. The Retirement Plan.
Hey, tell us about it. What is it? What's good about it?
It's a great movie. It's just
Okay.
hard to explain, but I will say that at one point his daughter and his granddaughter are in trouble. He's never met his granddaughter before, and he just suddenly appears at his house in Grand Cayman. He didn't even know he had a granddaughter, and the granddaughter thought he was dead. But then he has to protect them, and he makes Rambo look like a wuss.
Okay.
The Retirement Plan, Hulu.
Got it. Got it. We'll check it out. Other comments, folks? What about your retirement? Gary,
Well,
you're
you
not
guys-
retired yet, right? Gary's still muted. Somebody else was going to say
There we
something.
go.
Go ahead.
So no, far from it. What is it? Almost 13 years before I can think about it. My retirement is 1 hour 45 minutes north of here, and sits on 115 acres.
for you. Good to have a plan.
I was going to say, Social Security has an interesting fact that from when you retire and start drawing Social Security to when you stop drawing Social Security, which means you're no longer around, that's an average of 18 months, year and a half. And when you delve into that little fact on their websites, they will tell you that's because people ended up watching television or they didn't have alternative things to occupy their time.
Treaters.
And yes, I know a bunch of us on this call spend our times around the 3x4 inch screen, or even larger, the ratio of 3x4. And the problem is when you do that, you start snacking, and then the pulmonary goes, and then the cardiac goes. And so it's best to find something to keep you active, and in my case, I mean, the reason I'm late tonight was because I'm a college kid again. So, and it is, I will tell you, it's extremely fun to be in a classroom where most of the students will refer to you as grandpa. And they'll ask when you first started your work process many years ago, did you get your pick of dinosaurs to ride to the work site on? And the other one, of course, they'll ask is, well, when you had to document the work you did when you were out on the job, did you just move the rocks around on the pile? And so, you get, it's kind of fun. And they, after the initial reaction of them saying, gee, there's this older guy in the class, then they're kind of like, well, why are you here? And why are you doing this? And what do you hope to achieve type stuff? And so, for in my case, it's a method of, staying active and staying social, and
Smart.
And quite honestly, avoiding the flat screen. So,
Well, did you do it through Ivy Tech? Because I know they have a program for seniors.
most of the schools do. There's a thing in Indiana called Senior Scholars, and so when you hit 60, you either get low cost or no cost at a state associated institution. So your IU, your Purdue's. It varies by school. In my case, Ivy Tech. So it is basically a no charge 2-year degree. I do pay what they call a technology fee, which is like $75 a semester.
Right.
And then I'll pay for whatever my books are. So like for this spring, my total cost, I think, was $330 for the spring. And yet I'm receiving well over $3,000 of education that I'm, no charge. Essentially, the school does that because I walk through the door, they get paid, and
Yep.
it's part of the state program that Ivy Tech hasn't worked out. Will I take that degree and go any further? No. While I have an interest in cybersecurity, our instructors tell us that the best cybersecurity program in the country is the one at Purdue. But you better, when you apply, the first thing they do is they shake your hand and they say, welcome and all that. Do you have 4 semesters of calculus? And when you blink your eyes and stuff, they go, hope you've had an enjoyable day visiting here. Because that's what it takes to get into the program. Because what is cybersecurity? It's all math. And so, I don't think I'll be taking it into cybersecurity. But, I also won't be done with this particular quest till I'm 75. But at least, I'm making up for a deficit, and I know my education back a while back, and just enjoying learning stuff, and so yeah, it's worth it. And you do have to suffer through things like I'm having to suffer through a math course right now, and I'm one of these guys that if you took 22 plus 22, I break out a cold sweat, and so it's a challenge, but at the same time, I'm enjoying it. So, but you do have to remember that you do have to attend classes, turn in work, take quizzes, take midterms, all those fun little things that come along with being back in college. So that was kind of the first shock a couple years ago when I first started this whole venture. But
Mhm.
yeah, if you're interested, there's lots of programs with lots of schools, and if Steve Walton ever wanted to go in and or Tom wanted to say, well, let's take up welding. Well, they got a whole program for you, and so you never know, just what you can find. So yeah,
For you, Bill.
it's fun.
I took some IT classes at Ivy Tech right after I retired. Same way. I didn't continue because I found that some of it was long on process and short on applicability, and so I didn't continue. I may go back at some point in time and choose some different courses, but I was disappointed. Anybody else like to make some comments here? Like to hear your point of view. Doug Garlinger has put up a picture of
The retirement plan.
Nicholas. Gotcha. Okay.
And you can get it on Amazon for $2.99.
We'll check it out.
But on Hulu, it's free if you have Hulu.
Yep.
But
Okay.
don't watch it unless you like violence.
Okay.
I will add one thing about being back as a student, so to speak.
Yeah.
All those student discounts still apply.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't know that I just happen to be that I'm, skewing the bell curve a lot to the right because of my age. But at the same time, Doug's talking about Hulu. Well, Hulu cost me $1.99 a month as a college student. I enjoy Barron's newspaper and the Wall Street Journal. Normally, those are fairly expensive. As a college student, I have Barron's and the Wall Street Journal for $8 a month. And that's the print edition, not just online stuff. So you get to go back and play the college student, including everybody sending you subscribe to our magazine. So kind of fun.
I hadn't thought about that. That's cool.
Can you double dip, get a student discount and a retirement discount?
Like, does AARP kick in too? Can you do those together?
Gary, I've not tried that yet to see what I could come up with. But yeah, it's I know nowadays when I see something online, I'll contact us. I'll hit that button and say, what are you offering a student discount? And there is a company out there that will confirm that you have a student status, and they apparently have a database of names and schools, and they match it and they say, yeah, this person's a genuine student, just happens to be way beyond the normal age, but so yeah, you can get those discounts. So it's kind of something else to add into the mix.
That's great. Tom, how about your retirement scenario?
Well, it's I'm still doing 2 or 3 days a week at the food pantry. So during the height of the pandemic, I was there 5 or 6 days a week because there were a lot of people needing food. But it's still 2 or 3 days a week, and it's at least reasonably aerobic. There are 60-pound boxes of chicken to deal with, and some things like that. So it's and it feels good to give back and to help people who A, need help, and B, are overwhelmingly grateful and thankful to get the assistance.
Agree with that. Yeah.
Big wheels of cheese too.
Yes.
You ever partake in any of it, Tom?
Of the food that we give out?
Yeah.
Not a little bit. Sometimes the food comes in and there'll be a box that's damaged or something like that, which we do not give out to clients. So, but it's usually available for volunteers. So yeah, we do. We and sometimes we just take something home to figure out, okay, what can we do with this? Sort of like the pork jowls I was talking about. It's we've got a whole pallet of this stuff, but it's not a primary meal. It's really just it's an assistant. It's an ingredient is about the best thing you can say about it. It's you can fry it in a pan and then fry something else in the grease that comes off of it. It's you know, but some people recognize it and they're happy to get it. So that's it takes a long time to move it sometimes.
Have you visited down at Saraga?
Oh yes, I'm familiar with Saraga. It's we've
was
got one on the south side, and
Yep.
there's one up in the old H.H. Gregg at 38th and Lafayette Road, and then there's a new one in Castleton.
That's
And
right.
Yeah, it's kind of behind the Castleton Square.
Yep.
okay.
I was in there the other day with some friends, and I came down to one of these freezer cases, and they had sheep heads in there, and they were the whole heads of sheep,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, our parish has quite a number of Burmese or refugees from Myanmar, which is its new name. And my wife was over there looking at this sort of a little area we have where we collect things that then we are able to provide to people who need a couple of chairs or a dining room, a dinette set, or some cooking utensils, things like that. But in the other garage where we actually have a Burmese priest for the parish because we have enough people, they were cooking an entire beef head. So it's interesting. Part of what I'm doing in retirement is just sort of absorbing information about other cultures.
That's cool. That's cool. My daughter-in-law is an assistant principal down in Southport at a middle school in Southport.
Yeah.
And she talks about the number of translators they have in the Southport schools because of the number of Burmese children.
Yep. Yeah. At the food pantry, it's sort of interesting. We're probably about 60% Spanish speaking and about 20% Haitian Creole. And we get a tiny little smattering of others. The Spanish, well, we've learned the hard way not to rely on Google Translate. And we've got a longtime parishioner that we can consult on things French. She was a French teacher for 35 years or something like that. But even she says that unfortunately, Haitian Creole, although there is some French to it, is not French. And so there's just a whole lot she doesn't know how to translate.
And food tends to have a lot of vernacular to it. So
Yes.
and cooking and a lot of vernacular. And so that would be even harder, I would imagine, to translate.
Yeah, instead of ground beef, we were handing out for a little while dirt meat because Google translated did ground as dirt and then beef as sort of generic meat. And I said, no, that's not what we're trying to do. So, but we had to get somebody who was fluent in both English and our Haitian Creole to help us with that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice occasionally when the people come through the line and you offer them something in what you think you're offering them, and they go.
When we were doing IPS state of the district last year, they wanted it done in Spanish, Haitian Creole, English, and some of the language. They wanted 4 languages. We offered them 3. And that was live translators. So we had in a separate room that we're feeding them. And listening to some of those languages, like the Haitian Creole, I couldn't understand a single word she was saying. I just watched the levels and went, uh-huh.
It is amazing how much progress there has been made, however, in those translation programs like Google Translate.
Yes.
The AI and stuff that's coming in is looking at context and looking at complete sentences and figuring out that the ground that you met must be beef, not dirt, because of the context of what you're talking about. So it's getting better.
It's getting there. Although with something like ground beef, it's only 2 words, so it's sometimes still hard to. If it knew that you were standing in a food pantry, it could probably figure it out. But sometimes there's just not quite enough context. But yeah, we work at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of strange. The French word for cheese is fromage.
Right.
It turns out that the Haitian Creole word for cheese is fromage, Fwomaj. And I tease that it's sort of like Elmer Fudd does French.
Well, it's like I've been to Bilbao, in
Okay.
northern Spain, and they don't speak Spanish; they speak Spanish with a lisp. It's the same
Okay.
same kind of thing,
Okay. Yeah.
Is that Basque?
right?
It's a QUE Basque.
That's right. Okay, so we've got several people with interesting perspectives on retirement. Doug, what would you say is your retirement strategy at this point? Is it just figuring out and taking all these trips you take, or what's your plan?
It's sleep 9 hours a day.
Uh,
At 10 p.m. every night, I watch Gutfeld on Fox News, which you wouldn't like. And then at 11 o'clock, I go to bed, get up maybe at 8 or 9. That's 9 or 10 hours sleep, and then plan a trip. And so I already told Chuck before the rest of you were here, and Steve Walton knows, but on Saturday morning at 3:30, I got to get up, and I don't do mornings. And I'm headed to St. Lucia in the Caribbean, and then to Trinidad and Tobago, and then to Barbados, and be back the next Saturday.
I have a number of friends right now that are doing amazing amounts of travel. One friend, John Schneider, if any of you may know John Schneider, he is now in the midst of I think it's about a 6-month cruise around the entire world. And I think as we speak, he's in Indonesia. But he and Lonnie are just having a grand time traveling on a cruise ship and just doing everything. And I have another friend who I worked with back at WPGU Radio in Urbana, Illinois, many, many, many years ago. And he travels all the time. He goes, but he has a particular thing, Doug, that he likes to do. Like you like Coke, he likes Oreo cookies. So everywhere he goes into a local market or a store and finds their local version of Oreo cookies and takes pictures of them and eats them and whatnot. That's his little twist of uniqueness.
Has he found a
Yes.
country where their version is still Hydrox?
No, I think he's really looking for real Oreo. I mean, almost every country still offers them in some fashion or another. And he's been to countries where they'll have on the shelf 10 different flavors or sizes or amount of stuffing or whatever on his Oreos. And he's in hog heaven at that point. Anybody else want to contribute anything to the discussion about retirement? If each of you were to look at yourself 10 years ago, 15 years ago, before you even considered retirement, what advice would you give yourself from this perspective?
Probably would have gone into IT a lot earlier, because our professions and lots of other professions, where's it going? How you distribute, how you process, how you switch. I mean, like right now, my only son, Casey's 39, and he works for Local 30, which is the theater and tech uniform union. And he's in their apprenticeship program now. And he's been peppering his father with a lot of audio questions, because at one time I did a lot of audio, mass audio type stuff. And he was over a couple nights ago, and he said, "What's this Dante stuff?" So I said, "Well, let's go look it up, and
Yeah.
I'll explain what it is." And he said, "I said, why?" And he says, "Well, they're starting to convert the convention center from a hardwire patch bay system to the Dante system." And he says, it's something that as an apprentice in their apprentice program, I have to learn, because, I'm kind of the next generation of technicians. He says, because, Dad, you old guys, you're going to die off, It's nice to be loved. But yeah, that's, I probably would have gone into that a little earlier than what I did, simply to, know the technology, be more useful to people I was working for.
Many of you may know Kirk Harnack, a fellow broadcast engineer and SBE board member. He posted on Facebook, I think today, a picture from 10 years ago when he was part of the Telos Omnia group, and they introduced Livewire 10 years ago today, which was one of the first digital distribution audio systems. Gary, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago, even though you're still working today?
More computers. Networking. That's the big one that right now, we have 6509s in the building from Cisco, and you can only get access to them by typing command line. And there's one person in the building that can do it. And he's like, "Oh, just do it this way." Well, I like the other switches that we have that make my life a whole lot easier. And but he doesn't like them, and so we have Meraki's that we like because, in fact, Jason and I can switch things a lot easier because we don't know the command lines. And I haven't got around to making time to make myself a cheat sheet to what simple command lines I need to do some of the simple stuff.
Well, I can make a recommendation to you. Have you ever played with a Raspberry Pi?
Yes.
Okay. That's the best way I know to learn command line stuff. There you go. You just don't install the GUI. Just run it with the command line.
Actually, I think this one is a gaming computer. A friend of mine made me.
Uh-huh.
That one card has like every form of game on it or something like that.
I have one of those for my grandkids. Yep. Yep. Tom, what about your advice to yourself 10 years ago?
Hard to say. Just stay calm, roll with the punches. You'll get there.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Mr. Garlinger?
No, I don't really have any advice. I just live one day at a time and plan my next trip. That's all.
Okay. Okay. And you've been
Hey.
consistent, even when you were working, you were consistently traveling like this.
Well, I went the first 69 countries up until 2004. And then when I left LaCie, I didn't go to a new country for 11 years. And then I was at Channel 8, Wish TV, and I decided to ratchet it up again. So in 2015, I started again, and now I'm at 113. One time, I think it was 15, might have been 16. I went to Europe and went to, I think, 10 countries in 11 days. Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Turkey, Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, Italy, however many that was. But
Now, see,
Right?
I would really be impressed if you had done them in alphabetical order.
Well, it would take a while.
Yeah.
We did something like that in 1985 when I was working for ITC. We introduced the Delta cart machine and made a trip over to Europe and hit every Western European capital in 1985. And that was very interesting. My favorite place was Andorra.
That's where I've not been.
Ah, you got to go, Doug. It's great.
I almost asked you when you said Basque, or I did, if you made it to Andorra.
Absolutely.
The only three countries, and I count Gibraltar
Yep.
as a country, the English part. The only three countries in Western Europe that I've not been to are Gibraltar, Andorra, and Iceland.
Mm. Hmm. I can tell you my favorite story about Andorra. I first found out about Andorra. I was a teenager and I was on the ham radio and I was talking to a guy in Andorra and his call sign was C31FQ. And I've never forgotten it. I don't know why I can't remember people's name that I talked to 15 minutes ago, but his call sign was C31FQ. And he sent me a QSL card and it had all these beautiful mountains all over it. And he told me a story. He says, here in Andorra, we pay for our military protection to the crown princes of Spain, and we pay a total of 7 gourds of goat cheese per year under ancient agreement. And this was the 70s. I was a child of Vietnam, right? And the whole idea of paying for your military protection with 7 gourds of goat cheese tickled my funny bone. I loved that concept. Anyway, when I went there, I found out that the country of Andorra is basically the size of the desk that I'm sitting at right now. And in the north part of it, in the north part of Andorra, at that time, people spoke French, and the medium of exchange was the French franc. In the south part of Andorra, people spoke Spanish, and the medium of exchange was the peseta. And those two groups of people didn't like each other very much. And so when the whole idea of the European community came around, I sat there and said, good luck, folks. How's that going to work, right? Anyway, that's Andorra. Absolutely beautiful place. I've driven every single road in Andorra from one end to the other. And it's one huge duty-free zone. The
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 Pyrenees,
amateur radio iambic key that I have, I bought on a market in Andorra. And it's beautiful. I've never seen one like it anywhere else. So, anyway, Andorra. Go ahead, say what were you saying, Doug?
I just said the Pyrenees Mountains.
Yes, indeed.
And one
Yep.
of these days I'm going to Barcelona and then take a bus up there.
You can actually drive. It's really nice, and there's some really beautiful tunnels you end up going through, and it's great. You'd want to have a car because you want to get around all of Andorra, not just Andorra la Vella. I actually have been 3 times to Andorra. Each time because I've found ways to construct weekends where I would be spending the weekend in Barcelona so I could go up to Andorra. Let's see who we have not asked. Steve, tell us about what your advice would you give yourself 10 years ago?
You have your mic working yet, Steve?
Hopefully, maybe not.
I had lunch with him and his wife and my wife on Friday at 11. And then he's a big eclipse watcher.
Oh yeah.
2017, we drove to Sullivan, Missouri, southwest of St. Louis, and watched the eclipse there, where there were no clouds at all.
We live in a cul-de-sac over here. I'm not far from you, Doug, and I'm on the HOA now. That's one of the things I'm doing with my
Oh my
retirement.
God.
Yeah, I know.
I have a joke for you.
Okay, one second. And what I did is about 6 months ago, I bought 100 sets of the eclipse glasses and donated them to our HOA, and we all got together in the cul-de-sac and drank wine and sat in our chairs and put on the eclipse glasses. And one person even made up a playlist of all the songs and stuff that had to do with the sun or the moon or whatever. And just as the eclipse was ending, the song "Here Comes the Sun" came on, and it was pretty cool.
And you should have done Simon and Garfunkel's "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend" when it began.
Yep. And one other person brought moon pies and sun chips and a few other kinds of snacky things for people to have as well.
I had sun chips, but
Yep.
the bad joke is this.
Okay.
What do you call a group of Karens when they get together?
An HOA.
That's right, a homeowners association.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably the least favorite thing I can ever imagine doing, but I guess kind of felt that now that I'm retired, I could give back in some fashion and try to bring some rationality to the group. I'm actually the head of the architectural committee, so I'm the guy that tells you whether you can have that fence in your backyard or not.
Well,
So
be the
how high
exception that
of
proves
a
the rule.
Exactly.
how high of a broadcast tower do you allow?
Well, they don't allow anything, all the covenants were signed 20 years ago, right? So they don't allow anything that can be seen by the street. But I actually have a 30-foot tower with a hex beam right in the back of my house next to the chimney, and you can't see it from the street. And I invited the HOA over, and they came over, and I said, "Here it is. Tell me why I can't do this." And they couldn't, so I have it.
Now, is there not something before Congress right now about towers and HOAs and something? I vaguely remember that.
And I fortified myself with the language of that of that bill,
Section 708, 208, something like that.
something like that. I called up the ARRL and talked to their people about it, and I also spoke with Chris Imlay, of course, and there's plenty of reasons, but I didn't want to pull that card unless I needed to.
In 1998, we built a house at Gray Road and 146th Street. And we were the 19th house that was sold in that out of the first 20. And so the builder, whose name I can't remember right now, but the builder, they stopped controlling things at 6 p.m. that night. At midnight that night, the homeowners association took over. So between 6 p.m. and 12 p.m., I built a 38-foot tower.
Good for you.
And I had a letter from Chris Imlay, and there wasn't nothing they could do about it because for 6 hours it was a twilight zone.
Yeah. The guy who's got the best stories about HOA experience is Baumgartner.
Red.
Yeah. Yeah, he got it really bad.
So what is the status of that bill, or what is the outcome of that bill? I'm not familiar.
It's tied up with everything else at the moment.
Okay.
Hey, Bill,
Sir.
are you available for a gig on Tuesday, the 23rd of April? Audio mixing?
Let me look at the magic calendar device. Well, I do have a class from 5:30 to 7 p.m., but other than that, I am open.
Okay, well that sort of rolls it out because this is a debate and it starts at 7 p.m. So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's my math class, and this, as I say, this is, I remember the days as a college kid when we would sit there and
Maybe you locked up there, Bill. Lost you, Bill.
Just like Metronet, it freezes up.
Is there an engineer in the building?
I like Metronet, Doug.
I like Metronet. I'm doing pretty well with it.
Metronet was up for like 20 hours a few days ago.
You gotta pay your bill, Doug.
Yeah, I pay a bill a lot, $256.
For Metronet?
Well, I have all their TV and I have their streaming,
Oh,
their internet.
I have their gigabit Ethernet fiber, and I have a fixed IP address, and I pay about 106 a month.
But do you have regular TV?
No, because all my TVs are Roku's,
Oh, well,
so
could-
I have Roku's all through the house, and that's what we watch.
yeah, but you can't watch Fox News.
Sure, I can.
I
don't-
watch it through Sling. I have Sling. And
I have
watch it
YouTube.
through Sling.
I have YouTube TV. Same difference, and I also have something called a HD Home Run 4K, which is a little box about the size of a set of cigarettes, a pack of cigarettes. It's got an F connector on it and an Ethernet connector and a power connector. And it's got an antenna in the attic, and I get 70 channels of over-the-air television, including,
You're missing a few.
yeah, right.
83.
Okay. Well, some of them I just turn off because they're like shopping channels and things like that. But has 4 separate receivers, and 2 of them will also do ATSC3. And it's on IP, and the whole house has the app on my Roku, so I can watch any of the channels on the Roku in any of the TVs, and up to 4 things at a time. And I also have a system called Plex, which is my inborn media server, and it also records off of either YouTube TV or off of any of the channels that I subscribe to, or off the HD Home Run. So it automatically records that.
I use Sling, which has built-in DVR on it.
Yep.
And then they have an Air TV, which is, well, it's attached. It's literally sitting behind the camera. And I can watch that in the house at the condo in Florida or at the farm.
Yep.
And I can watch up to 2 streams at one time over the Air TV, and then we use Sling to watch everything else if we want to.
Great. Last week Desi and I took the kids down to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and I brought one of the little Roku dongles with me and plugged it into the Airbnb television set, and we watch anything that is in the house.
Did you go to Dollywood?
We went to a couple of the events that they have. We went to something called a Stampede, and which is a Western show, a dinner show in the evening. But most of the time, we just did other things.
Didn't Sling used to have a system where
Yes.
you had a hard box that you would connect external like 480i stuff into?
Yep.
And they discontinued that. I mean, they turned off the
think they did.
servers or something.
Yeah, it was basically an over-the-air DVR.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about it was I put one in Manila, Philippines, in our house there, and I could watch the Philippine over-the-air channels from our house here by using the Sling app.
But that's all gone.
What was it Terry Van Bibber used to, or not Terry, Vice President of Lynn used to watch in his Florida house?
Oh, well, Lynn corporate people used all kinds of slings to watch all of the various stations. So,
but that's all discontinued, correct? It's no longer.
Yeah, they don't work. They were supposed to work port to port by themselves, but they died off.
So is
I
there?
found that they were the fastest consumers of electrolytic capacitors I've ever seen. I went through and recapped them like 4 times. And
So what is there a Sling type device where you could put in an external video and audio and
I think this HD Home Run is basically doing that kind of thing on steroids, right? It's taking over the air and
Yeah.
putting it in an IP and what you can do with what you want. And they have a DVR as well.
So the problem with HD home runs is you have to have a really huge delay on your packet sizes if you want to ship them outside your house.
Right.
So there's a box called a TiVo that will do that, or Tablo.
Yep.
Tablo will do it to an app because it actually shrinks the packet size down. And we're going through that problem right now. That I'm actually getting ready to ship out 6 Tablos throughout the state because we have those sub channels like in Chicago and all that kind of stuff. So I'm shrinking because they'll shrink the packets down for me, and I can watch it on anything and also then record it.
Well,
And it's $50 a year for the online DVR.
what's the answer? I like to watch basketball, college basketball on the TV, but I like to listen to the radio streamed from the station in Champaign that is doing the radio. But their syncing is, like 30 seconds off. How do you fix that?
I've been finding the Colts radio is the one that's delayed more than national TV, so you can't hit the pause. I just hit the pause button on the Colts over the air,
Yeah.
and then pick it up when a play starts, and it kind of stays kind of close. And I've never understood why radio is so much slower than video because, video has how much processing?
Exactly.
Is the audio ahead of or behind the video, Chuck?
In my case, TV the video was following the audio.
So you need to delay the audio.
Need to delay the audio about 30 seconds. And there's no, I was using what's the name of the over-the-air streamer of many radio stations. I was using that, but there's no pause button anymore. They don't put a pause button on the streaming radio.
iHeart. We use an iHeart.
No.
Hold on a second. I'll be back.
Okay.
I
was using what's the name of it here? TuneIn radio.
Oh, because
But
Colts, it's the other way around. The radio is delayed almost 30 some odd seconds
wow.
on all the processing. Because I think they have to go from the game to what used to be the MS building. Then from the MS building, it goes to some distributor somewhere that then puts it up on either satellite or sends it out IP. So it has like 10 hops before it ever reaches.
Wow.
From what I'm understanding.
Chuck, have you ever used the app Radio Garden?
Oh, that'll work.
Yeah, I have. It's good. Does it have a pause button? I don't think so.
No.
It doesn't. It's just
I love Radio Garden. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tom, what are you displaying there?
It's a little box from Kramer Tools. It's an audio delay, analog stereo. It's their model VA, Victor Albert, 256 XL.
Okay.
I'm not sure how long it goes.
Okay.
But look up Kramer Tools and
I'll check it out.
It's a teeny little box, and you can also besides me for the info, you can also thank Gary, because I think I got this box from him a couple of years ago.
Cool.
Kramer makes extremely solid stuff.
And pretty cost effective too.
It's kind of like the old Electro Voice 635A. You could hammer nails and then turn around and do an interview.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it sounded a little better too. Folks, I'm going out to NAB this year. And spending a couple days. The one thing I continue to do from a business side of things is consult my wife's company, and she's got 8 customers coming from the Philippines and Guam, and so we're going to be escorting them around the NAB show and then bringing them back to Indianapolis, and we're going to take them down to southern Indiana, down to Evansville, and visit ERI, and then we're going to fly them up to Nova Scotia and take them to Nautel. for the training that Nautel offers up there. So pretty much the rest of this month, I'm going to be a babysitter, but I enjoy it.
5.4 seconds. It'll do.
Okay. That won't get the job done.
Well, sorry,
That's okay. Thank you.
I tried.
You did. Well done.
You can daisy chain a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Folks, anybody else got anything for the good of the order?
About adjournment.
Thank you, Chuck, for pitch hitting, in the
Glad to
absence
help.
of the chair and the associate chair on both being on other items. So,
Glad to help. Glad to help.
yes.
And I hope you
Like
found
good old days.
the retirement presentation useful, or at least interesting, or humorous.
All right.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Aye.
yep.
See you later, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.
Have a
Thanks
good
for
night.
having us. It's nice to have been had.
Cheers.